We thought we'd do this live. We're going to do more together with Pablo Manriquez. And if you guys don't know who Pablo is, he's the editor of the Migrant Insider. They do a lot of tangential reporting, a lot of news out of Washington, D.C., and we wanted to highlight some of the stuff that they've been working on lately here. And so let me give Pablo a ring. Nothing like old school phone calls, right? Hey, guys, we just casual day to day. Come on in here. Let's see who's joining. I'll wait for you guys to join a little bit, and I'm going to call Pablo to get this guy on the live with us here. Oh boy, Pablo, now you're going to make me vamp, huh? Well, so here I am, solo. We had planned for a 2 p.m. live with the editor of Migrant Insider, Pablo Manriquez. We're going to do more casual lives like this on a weekly basis, just sort of check in with each other's reporting and see what's going on. I know something that's on my mind today is something that I woke up to in the news is that they've released more files. Sorry, I was taking. Okay, here we go. Hopefully, Pablo just texted. Hopefully, he can get on here. If not, oh, okay. We might have to reschedule this here. Unless there's somebody out there that wants to go live with me. You know, Pablo's running a little late. He's running 30 minutes late, so we can come down and come back up in a little bit. Or you guys are out there. Anyone want to join live? I mean, that's something that I'd always offered is people that were willing to, come on here and be paid subscribers, a chance to interview me if there's anyone out there. If not, we can close the chat, or I can just talk a little bit more about what we're seeing out in DC. And then we'll join back live with Pablo. Let's do that. Okay, so what I saw this morning was new files released from the Epstein files, photos that showed that President Trump had a lot cozier of a relationship with the accused pedophile than previously officially known. You know, the president has done a lot to try to distance himself, a lot to try to call the people that have consistently called for the release of these files. He's called them crazy, obsessed. He's used things like Trump derangement syndrome, people that have a right to know if the president was in bed figuratively or literally with an accused pedophile. A lot of people believe that and suspect that. Unfortunately, we haven't got clarity over it. We had been waiting for the release of these files, and because the Democrats had been pushing so hard, it's actually been, in full disclosure, more of a bipartisan push, but the Democrats have clearly played a big role in this, and they released more photos today, this morning, some pretty kind of sexually suggestive photos, others that just show more images unseen before, images of President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein hanging out together. It appears at some sort of cocktail party, another one of these highfalutin parties that, they're often spotted at. And it was, something that people had sort of been waiting for and long suspected. And we got more evidence that tied President Trump. He wasn't the president then, of course, but during part of the time he was, during President Trump's first term, he was known to associate with Jeffrey Epstein. And we got some of those files, more evidence that shows just how close his relationship was with the accused pedophile. Those came out. And then also something that we were going to talk about with Pablo when he joins us. I don't know if you guys saw what happened in Washington yesterday with Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. One of the things that we have talked a lot about here on our live is this notion that she is flat out lying or misrepresenting the truth when she says that U.S. citizens have not been caught up in this aggressive dragnet by DHS immigration forces. We have seen, if you've followed any of our reporting, you have seen countless incidents of U.S. citizens, Americans, people who were born in this country who were taken into custody anyway. Some who were held in custody for hours, some who were held for days at a time before they were released after the federal government was satisfied and verified their citizenship. We've seen it happen as recently as this week when a video that we posted out of Minneapolis showed a young man who didn't have his ID on him. And instead of believing him and is taking his word at face value, these immigration agents used this probable cause that they claimed to have because he was in fear. He didn't respond exactly how they wanted him to respond. He didn't produce his license, even though he said he could. They didn't give him the opportunity to do that. And before you knew it, he was in the back of an unmarked federal car and being taken into custody. He had a press conference where he talked about that incident. And it was one of the things that was highlighted during this oversight hearing yesterday, where DHS Secretary Noem was just raked over the coals by congressional Democrats, including little known representative out of Rhode Island. He's clearly not perhaps some of you guys know him in the Northeast. People that follow politics closely, of course, know him, but he's not a household name. And he held a master class in cross-examination and questioning of DHS Secretary Noem. He asked her if she was aware of any deported veterans, any veterans, military veterans, combat military veterans who had served for the U.S. who had been deported. Noem claimed to not know of any. And not only that, she claimed that there hadn't been a single case. And just as she finished her sentence, he invited somebody in virtually who had been deported, somebody who was shot twice during a tour of duty in Panama, somebody who almost gave the ultimate sacrifice for his country, death, who risked his life to protect this country in Panama. Somebody who maybe should be given the benefit of the doubt. They don't give a damn with DHS. They deported him anyway. The DHS Secretary Noem promised to look into his case. And then after that introduction, there was another individual, a husband whose wife had been deported. And this person, this man, was also a U.S. military combat veteran who had been separated from his wife for at least 4 months. Again, Kristi Noem tried to stammer her way out of it and also pledged to look into that case. Do we believe her? I don't know. She's really not been an example of forthrightness to the American public. She's really not been an example of somebody who's told the truth to us in these last 10 months, 11 months of the new Trump administration. She has been one of these vocal figures, one of these out front, center of the pack in terms of aggressiveness, of defense, and her vocal defense of these immigration agents. All right, hold on one second. Yeah, what's up, man? Oh my gosh. This is the kind of neighborhood that we live in. We got neighbors screaming at us here. Holy cow. Derek, I got a show that I'm running, man. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay. I am first Pablo doesn't show up, then I got a neighbor that's yelling at me here. Thanks guys for your patience. Good gracious, man. So anyway, at this oversight hearing yesterday, Beanie Thompson was the chair of this oversight hearing, and he started by not asking DHS Secretary Noem to resign, but by telling DHS Secretary Noem to resign, saying that she has made the country less safe simply by being at the helm of DHS, simply by backing these aggressive tactics here. These, what we have seen and what critics have called unlawful actions by these federal agents. You remember, if you saw our reporting last week on a conversation that we had with a recently retired former federal prosecutor for ICE who defended these actions and said that nothing that he has seen with his own eyes or cases that he's reviewed have been unlawful. Now, of course, it's his job to fight and defend the federal government and fight and defend some of his friends. And he was a vocal advocate for them, saying that they might be violating policy, which we know that to be true. I've got a directive seared into my head. I don't even need to look it up. Directive 11604, where they say they're not supposed to take an adult into custody if they have a migrant in their care, or if they're with a migrant, or a minor, rather. And we've seen them violate that over and over and over again. This aggressive dragnet, which again is defended by, vocally and viscerally defended by DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. During this cross-examination yesterday at the oversight hearing, she tried to say and defend that somebody, the wife of this man who had served our country, who's been separated for her for 4 months, she tried to say that she can't pick and choose the kinds of laws that are upheld in this country. That woman, the only reason she's in custody is because she wrote 2 bad checks that tallied $80. Now, look, she has broad moral discretion as the DHS secretary, as do all these federal agents. Let's be clear about that. One of the biggest dictatorships in this country is a law enforcement officer who has the broad discretion to interpret the law. When it comes to an immigration agent, has the broad discretion to interpret and decide whether or not somebody gets taken into custody. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, the buck stops at her. And we've seen all these rumors as well, all of these headlines of coming out, the Bulwark reporting it, our friend Adrian Carrasquillo reporting that she was on the chopping block and soon going to be the first Trump cabinet member from this second iteration of the Trump presidency to be fired. She dismissed these statements, laughed them off at a recent press conference when asked about it. But it's usually when people try to make light of a situation that there's some truth to it. I was more surprised that she didn't give more of aggressive defense of what she's been doing, just as aggressive as she has been in her support for these ICE agents who we've seen, in my world view, break the law repeatedly, over and over and over again. What's upsetting also is that there is a strong possibility and likelihood that anyone who has served as an ICE agent during the second Trump 2.0 will be pardoned as Trump exits the White House. That's going to come. Another thing that is going to come because of what we've seen with the Epstein file release and these more files, I should say, from the Epstein files, more evidence, is we're likely going to hear a ramp up in the rhetoric towards Venezuela. My executive producer and I were talking this morning. He says he gives it till Friday till we see boots on the ground there. We'll see. I know a lot of people stand with him and think the same thing, is that we've just been seeing more and more egregious violations of U.S. soldiers and troops, U.S. forces going into international waters and taking capture of oil rigs. You saw the video. I know a lot of us did. That brazen broad daylight video where you're seeing people rappel from helicopters all dressed in black, those special forces on those oil rigs in Venezuela, trying to convince us that fentanyl comes from Venezuela. I don't know. Maybe you should believe people who have covered these types of things before, people like me who have covered drug cartels, who know that a lot of that types of stuff that come in, fentanyl comes in from Mexico. I don't know any fentanyl shipments that are coming in from Venezuela, but, they're still trying to convince us that these are the drug runners that we need to worry about. It's a playbook that, a lot of fascist regimes have seen before, distract from the headlines to try to create a conflict that starts some sort of national unity or consciousness of togetherness. Who knows, All I know is that as aggressive and as much propaganda as the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has put out about defending her agents out there on the streets who are breaking bones, quite literally, she didn't seem too confident in her defense yesterday when she was being grilled by elected officials, some of whom are trial lawyers and have that experience as trial attorneys, Yeah. Anyway, we've talked here and tried to vamp and tried to clear enough time for Pablo to get his act together here. Let's see if we can give him a call and see if maybe he could join right now. I'm going to put him on speaker. I'm going to put him on blast. I think it's funny. Pablo.
Just in my shower, put the shirt on.
We got a crowd waiting for you. All right, I'll see you soon, man. All right, great. All right, Pablo is coming. Pablo, I've made contact with Pablo. Part of the reason, I guess let's talk about Pablo Manriquez. Part of the reason why I love Pablo so much is he is so unpredictable. And he is 100% himself in any room that he's in. And so I strive to have that level of self-assuredness where it doesn't matter who it is, who's on the other end of the line, he is exactly who he is. And one of the things that one of the reasons why I wanted to do more lives like this and connect with him more is because he is uniquely himself as a journalist there in Washington, D.C. There's another guy named Matt Laszlo. Laszlo, I don't know if you guys know him. He has a very popular Substack as well. And they're both these sort of gonzo-esque style reporters that stick out in Washington, D.C., but are brilliant in their coverage of what Matt Laszlo describes as 450 plus liars. Politicians, covering Capitol Hill. It is a storied beat to be on, and Pablo Manriquez has carved out a new lane for himself in this role as an independent journalist and editor of the Migrant Insider. And while you guys are watching this, I'd encourage you guys to go check out some of the latest stories that he has up there and the coverage that he has been continuing to dominate in this space. There's a lot of overlap and there's a lot of intersection between our audiences. We think it makes sense to go live and to sort of, give you the two of us at the same time here. He comes with a bright, broad perspective out of Washington, D.C. I'm holding it down here in Atlanta as a former national correspondent, now a national independent journalist who has traveled the country and crisscrossed the country and been in communities that a lot of people haven't. We were talking about this yesterday when I had my show with Aaron Parnas and Jim Acosta, which you guys seem to enjoy a lot. A lot of people were really excited about seeing those folks on. And we were talking about how many people haven't been to the border. How many people talk about immigration, talk about illegal immigrants like they meet them and encounter them every day of their life, and that they're such a burden and nuisance. Speaking of past guests, we had on John Russell from More Perfect Union, who joined us from Appalachia, and he brought us a fascinating look into West Virginia, where he talked to a resident there, or rather Kentucky in Appalachia, where he talked to a resident there who said that her number one issue was the border. This is Kentucky, the border. I don't know. Does that make sense? Somehow they've been convinced, though, that it is the number one issue. People who have never been to the border, who have bought into this narrative and this rhetoric, strong beliefs that are loosely held, is how it was characterized to me. And I don't know what you guys think, but some people, all right, he's in. Pablo is in. All right, let's invite him to invite guests. Okay. Invited. So I've invited you, Pablo. It says waiting to join here. Down there. Maybe I'd hate to bring it down and then come back up on my phone if that's what I need to do. But I've invited you from my laptop. I don't know if that makes a difference. Let's see. If you guys bear with me, I'm going to come down off of my laptop and we're going to start a new live. We're going to take two, baby. Like a couples therapist I had back in the day. That is the most brilliant advice. And I've just saved you thousands and thousands of therapy, expenses here. Just take two with your partner. If you guys are both being sour, take two. We're going to take two here. No one's sour. No one's upset at Pablo. We're just going to start a new live. I'm going to close this one out and I'm going to invite you from my cell phone. And I think that might remedy the problem. I might not be able to use this, but who cares? We'll see Pablo. All right, guys, we'll end this and we'll see you guys back on the other side. Okay? See you right now. See you very soon.